With an Emmy, an Oscar, and a body that wouldn't let up, she was the biggest celebrity in the world. Liza Minnelli is now 79 years old and completely different. She's finally revealing her true self to the world after years in a wheelchair, 5 failed marriages, and a hidden brain illness. Today, Judy Garland's daughter, who used to sparkle in small miniskirts, can hardly walk. When you see the Cabaret star's current appearance, you won't believe your eyes. Liza Minnelli had more than a rough upbringing. It was risky. She was in charge of something that no child should ever have to deal with by the time she was 9 years old. She was informed by a physician in 1955 that taking more than 2 Nembutal pills daily could kill her mother, Judy Garland. Judy, however, had to think she was taking more. Liza then began to open the capsules and remove the majority of the powder. She substituted sugar for it. Lorna, her younger sister, assisted. This was what they did each week. Like sweeping the floor or doing the dishes, it became second nature. However, the purpose of this task was to preserve their mother's life. It also influenced Liza's perception of normal. In an interview years later, she stated that leading a supposedly regular life wasn't and still isn't easy. She was followed by that sensation. In her body as well as in her house. Lisa's mother was once made fun of by Hollywood for having the same body type. A large chest, long legs, and a short waist. "My little hunchback" was the nickname given to Judy Garland by Louis B. Mayer, the president of MGM. She felt unattractive in the studio. Liza experienced the same strain growing up. She heard the same taunts and saw her reflection. She was even questioned how she felt about being branded ugly by a journalist in a European interview in the 1970s. She was not surprised. She was already accustomed to it. She had taken on her mother's suffering. Biographers claim that both ladies experienced insecurity for the majority of their lives. In their partnerships, both frequently looked for father figures. That trend began early and continued for a long time. A single instance from Liza's early years demonstrates how perverted things had gotten. Judy Garland made a threat to overdose in 1954, when she was around 8 years old. She shut the bathroom door behind her. Liza waited. Minutes went by, then some more. Fear took over. She climbed inside after grabbing scissors and cutting through the screen. Judy was still living. A bottle of aspirin had been flushed down the toilet by her. It wasn't an attempt at suicide. It was a show. Liza could see it well. She later said that attention was all she desired. She recalled her mother's laughter. Even that type of moment was considered a part of the act by Judy. Liza never stayed there for too long because of the upheaval of her home life. She was always on the go. She had at least 14 different schools. Her mother was frequently impoverished. Vincente Minnelli, her father, was a director who was rarely present. Liza occasionally shared a home with her godmother, singer and writer Kay Thompson. Liza's life served as the inspiration for Thompson's well-known character, Eloise. Living at the Plaza Hotel as a young child, Eloise behaved like an adult. Liza was that person. She was raised at a hotel. She was living without a room of her own. She borrowed space and had halls and lobbies. Liza was searching for herself at the beginning of the 1960s. She desired more than to be recognized as the daughter of Judy Garland. She was assisted by 2 males. One was the French-Armenian vocalist Charles Aznavour. Liza was astounded when she saw him perform. He was magnetic, she said. She requested that he be her tutor. Yes, he replied. She never performed a show again without first showing it to him after that. Instead of just teaching her to sing a song, he taught her how to experience it. Tony Bennett was the other. He assisted her with stage presence, rhythm, and control. In 1965 and 1966, those teachings were most important. At the age of 19, Liza was putting a lot of effort into proving that she was more than her last name. In 1965, she starred in the film Flora, The Red Menace. It was the songwriting duo of Candor and EB's first musical. Lisa was only 19. Her role created history, although the musical only ran for 87 performances. The Tony Award for Best Actress in a Musical went to her. She was the youngest woman to get the honor in history. She had been sleeping on park benches a few years before. In her attempt to survive in New York, she had ran out of money. At the age of 16, she landed her first off-Broadway role in Best Foot Forward in 1962. She continued after breaking her ankle during rehearsals. A single that sold 500,000 copies was the result of that role. She rose quickly, but it took a lot of work. Their relationship was never straightforward, even though Judy Garland appeared backstage to assist her in 1965. Liza avoided her mother's songs for years, but the world saw a proud mother. She had no desire to do them. She didn't care because they weren't hers, not because she didn't care. She finally discussed it in her 1999 Broadway performance of Minnelli on Minnelli. Once, her father advised her to approach a task from a different perspective if it has already been done. She made an effort to do it. When Liza Minnelli got her first big movie role, she was 23 years old. It was 1969. The Sterile Cuckoo was the film. She portrayed Pookie Adams, an odd and defenseless college student who develops a strong romantic interest in a boy named Jerry. One scene in particular altered everything. One take, no cuts, just her voice, her eyes, and her desperation throughout a 4-minute phone call. Despite her best efforts, the relationship is already failing. Alan J. Apicula, the director, didn't break the mood. He rolled the camera. That choice gave the picture a realistic air, as if we were listening in on something that shouldn't have been heard. It wasn't raucous or theatrical. It was uneasy, rough, and silent. Because of the way she evoked emotion without speaking much, rather than because of what she said, that scene is now taught in movie schools all over the world. However, a terrible incident occurred right before The Sterile Cuckoo was made public. Liza's mother passed away on June 22, 1969. Judy Garland was 47 years old. London was where she had been. An unintentional barbiturate overdose was the cause. Liza was stunned. She did not accept it. Later, she stated, she's never going to pass. But she was devastated by the truth of the news. She wept uncontrollably for 8 days. Michael Feinstein, one of her friends, described it as a disaster. The timing of the loss couldn't have been worse. The release of her film was imminent. Though her mother never saw any of it, her name was being spoken in Hollywood. Under a shadow, what ought to have been the beginning of a happy chapter began. The story was not over yet. Liza's mother cautioned her against accepting the role when she initially read the script for The Infertile Cuckoo. Judy felt that the character was too needy and too similar to her daughter's true nature. Liza proceeded even though it was too intense. To maintain her schedule, she even declined the lead role in the Broadway production of Promises. Liza waited while Alan Pakula considered Patty Duke for the position. She gave it her all when she received the part. She was nominated for an Academy Award for her performance. Roger Ebert said it might prevail. Maggie Smith ultimately won the Oscar for Miss Jean Brodie's Prime. But Liza was here. Her nomination, according to others, was motivated by sympathy. Others referred to that as absurd. According to one critic, you think that you either didn't see the movie or didn't comprehend it. Liza Minnelli and Bob Fosse produced a television show in 1972 that had never been seen before. Liza with a Z was its name. It was shot on May 31st. At New York's Lyceum Theater. It had just been 8 weeks of rehearsals. Fosse, however, had an idea. The typical videotape was not what he wanted. In order to record it like a movie, he selected 8 16mm film cameras. The special stood out from everything else on TV because to that choice, which gave it a bold and professional appearance. The sponsor was Singer. Because Minnelli wore short skirts, some producers were uneasy. They feared the sponsor would be offended. Singer, however, continued on. The last performance lasted for an hour. It included a cabaret medley, Say Liza, and Bless the Child, among other songs. The music was composed by Marvin Hamlish. The costumes were created by Halston. It was broadcast on NBC on September 10, 1972. The response was enormous. The program took home 4 Emmys, including Outstanding Directing and Outstanding Single Program. It won a Peabody Award as well. Then it vanished. Before 1973, NBC broadcast it twice more before discontinuing it. It was absent for more than 25 years. Michael Eric, a film archivist, made a significant discovery in 1999. Liza was the copyright holder. The crew was able to restore it as a result. They created 5.1 surround sound using her own audio recordings. Each frame was manually cleaned. Liza with a Z returned after all those years. It was broadcast on Showtime on April 1, 2006. It was soon made available on DVD. Minnelli starred in Cabaret that same year. For her, it transformed everything. She portrayed Berlin singer Sally Bowles in the 1930s. She gave a strong, moving performance. She was featured on the covers of Time and Newsweek in the same week in February 1972, before the movie had even been released. That has never been done by a performer. The accolades came soon after. She won Best Actress at the 45th Academy Awards on March 27, 1973. Her age was 26. She defeated Cicely Tyson for Sounder and Diana Ross for Lady Sings the Blues. She praised her parents in her remarks, but made it obvious that this was her chance. She continued to be successful after that. In addition, she received every major prize for a single role, including the Golden Globe, the BAFTA in Britain, the Sant Jordi Prize in Spain, and the David di Donatello in Italy. It was more than just a musical, Cabaret. It was piercing and dark. Directed by Bob Fosse, it examined sexuality, fascism, and the growing terror in Berlin prior to World War II in a quick-cut manner. With a performance that demonstrated variety, danger, and genuine emotion, Minnelli matched that. The plot impacted harder than other musicals of the time because of the combination of theater and cinema. Following her 1972 Oscar win for Cabaret, Liza Minnelli appeared to be unstoppable. She possessed the drive, the legacy, and the talent. Her film career, however, was in ruins in a few years. In 1975, Lucky Lady was the first. Everything a studio could want was in the film. Stanley Donen directed, Gene Hackman and Beau Bridges co-starred, and the film had an $11 million budget. However, none of it was successful. It was criticized as being both costly and meaningless. Best expressed by Roger Ebert. Something so forgettable took so much work. The story's three-way romance was not well received by the audience. The movie was a failure. In 1976, A Matter of Time followed. In what should have been a charming fantasy film set in Rome, Lisa starred opposite Ingrid Bergman. However, the production was collapsing behind the scenes. It was directed by Vincente Minnelli, her father. During filming, he was reportedly exhibiting early Alzheimer's symptoms, despite being a Hollywood legend. His initial 3-hour cut was intended to be grand and poetic. The studio detested it. They released a version that felt flawed, trimmed it down to 97 minutes, added awkward stock footage, and poorly dubbed the voices. Vincente disowned the movie because he was so horrified. It was ripped apart by critics. To express his disapproval of Vincente's treatment, Martin Scorsese even purchased advertising space in the trades. Everyone involved was embarrassed in public. In 1977, New York dealt the last blow. New York. Minnelli and Robert De Niro were teamed in the Scorsese-directed film. It attempted to combine the brutal realism of the 1970s with the glitzy musicals of the 1950s. Audiences were perplexed by that blend. It was too drawn out, too depressing, and too intricate. Not only did Liza suffer, but the movie also had trouble at the box office. Scorsese's failure sent him into a downward spiral of substance abuse and depression. The loss was significant on all fronts. The harm was done by 1978. Minnelli was dubbed box office poison by Variety. Not only did that hurt, but it also put an end to her career as a lucrative movie star. After Cabaret, the studios that had hurried to cast her now retreated. She had become a financial risk after 3 consecutive failures. Hollywood has moved on. Liza resorted to live concerts, TV specials, and theatrical work. Her credibility was somewhat restored when she experienced actual film success again in 1981 with Arthur. Liza attempted to improve her social standing even as her career was struggling. She went to the Rothschild Villa on the French Riviera in the middle of the 1970s. It was a unique opportunity to enter one of the most exclusive circles in Europe. Perhaps she was overly enthusiastic. She made an effort to be witty when asked what she would like to drink. With a smirk, she requested some homebrew, alluding to the Rothschild vineyards. The joke didn't work. Almost nobody chuckled. What was supposed to sound funny instead sounded awkward. Despite its smallness, the incident revealed a greater truth. That was not Liza's world. She was a Broadway personality attempting to blend in with the bankers and lords. The sabotage of A Matter of Time was still present on the set. It was more than just a bad movie. Her father's career as a director came to an end. Corporate pressure caused what started out as a father-daughter homage to fall apart. The finished product didn't feel like the film Vincente had envisioned. Its charm was lost in the editing. It was deemed fragmented, overdone, and uninteresting by the critics. Liza's career was not the only one harmed. It tarnished her family's reputation. She did something that no other performer had ever done before in 1979. She performed in Carnegie Hall on 11 sold-out nights. 11 nights. All of the tickets have been sold. People waited in line to see and hear her. There were tickets for as little as $7.50. The priciest one cost $25. However, the cost wasn't the issue. It has to do with being there. A reviewer referred to it as hysteria. Liza gave it another name. Someone told her, "You give hope to everyone." She remembered that line. Perhaps the audience felt that way as well. Something more profound than mere amusement. She returned to Carnegie Hall for a 3-week residency 8 years later. Every show sold out once more. She was accompanied this time by a 47-piece orchestra. Halston created her outfits. It was more than just a performance. It was a sight. The live album from those performances spent 8 weeks on the Billboard 200. Because Liza Minnelli became a pop sensation in 1989, it became her biggest chart success of the decade until she completely upended everything. She has never done something like her album results. It was unabashedly modern and boldly electronic, produced by the Pet Shop Boys. Losing My Mind by Stephen Sondheim was reworked for the first single. It charted throughout Europe and beyond and earned her first top 10 success in the UK. The album sold 160,000 copies in the US and over 600,000 copies in Europe alone. In Spain and the UK, it was a huge success. The partnership was hailed by critics as the ideal balance. Drama met the dance floor, Broadway met synth music, and it worked because it wasn't a gimmick. It was respect for one another. She went on stage with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. for the final event that same year. Dean Martin was originally scheduled to attend. However, the energy changed when Liza took over when Johnny left the tour. They gave performances all across the United States and subsequently the world. The demand was so great when they arrived at London's Royal Albert Hall that police had to erect barriers outside. Before a single advertisement ran, 5 shows were sold out. Every performance was constructed as a showcase. Both Minnelli and Sinatra Davis performed alone. Then, with a 40-piece orchestra supporting them, they joined forces for a huge 30-minute medley. The conductor was Frank Sinatra Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. was privately fighting cancer behind the scenes. He continued. These would be his last significant engagements. The Fox Theater in Detroit is where they were recorded. A moment captured in time, the special broadcast on Showtime. The Freddie Mercury tribute concert followed. Wembley Stadium in 1992. The plan was not for Liza to perform. Someone left. She took over. The music she picked said it all. The winners are us. Not only was she singing. A whole stadium was being lifted by her. She had always been admired by Freddie. He adored her films, voice, and presence. Therefore, it was more than simply a show when she took the stage. It was an homage from someone who knew what stage ownership meant. It was an impromptu finale. She was joined by George Michael and others, arm in arm, in an unscripted but perfectly natural moment. It turned into one of the night's most talked about moments. And that was the pinnacle of emotions for many. Liza also won the inaugural Grammy Legend Award that year. She re-entered the charts with the song Losing My Mind Live, which she played on the same stage. She moved with unrefined enthusiasm and no choreography. It was more than just a pop song to critics. Some claimed she was singing to the industry rather than a lover. To the crowd that formerly adored her before leaving. The line, "Or were you just being nice," became more significant. It was a reflection rather than merely a performance. She made another change in 1996, this time with a jazz CD. Intimate and full of desire, Gently was. It was dubbed her make-out album. Claimed to have missed the romanticism of the past. The sound was muted. Trumpet, vibraphone, and piano. She even advertised it on QVC. In this way, thousands of copies were sold. Critics paid attention. She had stopped playing the happy icon. This 50-year-old woman was singing from experience. She was nominated for a Grammy for the album. It didn't have to win, but it didn't. The piece was self-evident. Then 2006 arrived. Recording the Black Parade was My Chemical Romance. They were looking for something unusual and theatrical. According to Gerard Way, he required a voice to respond. Someone who had weathered it, who was familiar with drama. He also remembered Liza Minnelli. As a voice, not as a stunt. She recorded her portion in New York and agreed right away. Los Angeles was where the band was. She did it for nothing. "Mama," she says halfway through the song. She adds, "and if you would call me your sweetheart." She then breaks down in tears. It's eerie. It's flawless. It was rated as one of the band's wildest and most entertaining songs ever by Billboard. In the US, it went gold, and in the UK, silver. According to Minnelli, she did it out of curiosity. Gerard was liked by her. Said he was as intelligent as a whip. In March 1967, she wed Peter Allen. She was only 20 years old and just a few days away from becoming 21. He was a performer from Australia who was attempting to establish himself in America. She was already well known in Hollywood and was Judy Garland's daughter. Although they appeared to be a wonderful fit on paper, nothing about that marriage went as planned for her. Liza interrupted him in 1969, 2 years later. He wasn't by himself. Everything changed when she saw it. She was stopped, shocked, and even more hurt by the treachery of her husband's partner than by the fact that he was in bed with someone else. According to some reports, it was her own stepfather, Mark Harron, who had only 6 months prior married her mother. The precise time is unclear. Some claim that on the night of her wedding, she caught them. Some claim it occurred later. In any case, the reality was harsh. Nobody had alerted her to the fact that her husband had been having an affair with her mother's husband. She didn't know he was gay, even though others in their circle did. She didn't anticipate it. In 1969, they split up that same year. Divorce took time. Not until 1974 was it finalized. However, the marriage was dissolved after that. She made jokes about it years later. She stated she always calls first and would never surprise somebody again. She used it as a means of finding humor in the suffering. She claimed that Peter felt caged and that he needed to come out in the 2024 documentary Liza, which is a really amazing and genuine story. And she knew that. The remarkable thing is that they remained so close. Even after everything, even after the treachery. They remained friends when Peter Allen passed away in 1992 due to complications from AIDS. He was 48. Liza was always there for him. She claimed that her affection for him remained constant. She was filming Cabaret in Munich by 1972. Her age was 26. Her marriage was failing. She began dating Rex Kramer at that time. He was in her band and played guitar. They had a passionate and well-publicized relationship. Some thought it was retaliation. Perhaps it was. Liza expressed her desire for a more straightforward life with him. In order to prepare black-eyed peas and eat grits, she declared her desire to live on his family's farm in Arkansas. For someone who grew up in Hollywood, it was an odd dream, but at the moment, it seemed true. The romance ended badly. Liza was sued for $500,000 by Rex's ex-wife. She said her marriage was destroyed by Liza. Later, Rex claimed that Liza would scream and then pass out during her awful tantrums. Liza denied it. She claimed that in order to get rid of him, she had to act as though she was in love with someone else. She referred to it as a plan rather than a breakdown. In hindsight, the pattern hurt. Judy Garland, her mother, had experienced something similar. According to rumors, she once discovered Liza's father, Vincente Minnelli, having an affair. Liza's heartbreak felt like a bitter reflection of her mother's life that she was unable to shake. She really didn't know, according to her lifelong friend Michael Feinstein. He claimed that although some questioned how she could be so blind, he had faith in her. He claimed that Liza trusted people readily and always believed what they told her. Even at her own expense. Bruce David Klein, the director, concurred. He claimed that despite the heartache, she managed to hold on to her love for Peter Allen and that her faith in people was an inherent part of who she was. She had already undergone more physical hardships in her lifetime by the time she was in her late 60s. Scoliosis since childhood, 2 replacement hips, a wired-up knee, and surgeries kept her body together. 3 discs that have been smashed. Nevertheless, she danced daily. "Never stop moving or you'll stop moving," she once said. She meant it, too. Before a co-star on set made fun of her gait, her scoliosis had gone undiagnosed for years. She discovered what had been incorrect all along at that point. She never understood why she had developed her career on stage despite modifying her performance and posture to deal with pain. It worsened later. Her back problems got so bad by 2014 that she required extensive surgery. Despite being largely confined to a wheelchair, she insisted on being active. She thought she might never move again if she stopped. But in 2000, she faced her most difficult obstacle. She passed out in her Florida home one evening. She was partially paralyzed and slurred her speech when paramedics discovered her sprawled on the floor. Although it appeared to be a stroke, the reality was more horrifying. She suffered from viral encephalitis, a deadly inflammation of the brain that can cause death or severe disability. She may never be able to walk or speak again, according to doctors. That would have been the end for most people, but Liza persisted. She regained her ability to walk. She regained her ability to speak. She returned to the stage within a year, performing at Madison Square Garden alongside Michael Jackson. She refuses to be disregarded when starring on Arrested Development. The controversies followed. She married David Guest in a celebrity-filled event in 2002. Elizabeth Taylor was maid of honor, and Michael Jackson was the best man. However, the fairy tale lasted for a little more than a year. Guest filed a $10 million lawsuit against her in 2003, alleging that she had attacked him while intoxicated. According to him, the beatings resulted in irreversible brain damage. However, Minnelli's medical staff retaliated. They claimed that shingles, not maltreatment, was the cause of his problems. No, he insisted. After years of dragging on, the case was dropped in 2007. However, Liza's case, which accused Guest of embezzling her money, was still pending. Her legal issues didn't end there. Mohammed Somaya, her longtime driver, launched a startling $100 million lawsuit in 2004. He accused Minnelli of repeatedly sexually assaulting him while intoxicated. He said the abuse continued for years. He claimed that if he ever resisted, she would fire him. He was fired in 2004 for refusing a pay cut. She invited him to her apartment after learning that he intended to file a lawsuit some months later. He claimed that she attempted to kiss him and referred to him as the love of her life. She allegedly attacked him when he refused. The case continued for over 10 years. Minnelli's attorneys attempted, but were unsuccessful, to have it dismissed. She peacefully relaxed a few days prior to her scheduled testifying. In spite of all, she never vanished. She took a step back, but did not stop. She and Lady Gaga made a rare appearance at the Oscars in 2022. At the age of 76, she assisted in presenting Best Picture. She and Michael Feinstein recorded Embraceable You for his Gershwin tribute CD that same year. She also collaborated with her half-sister Lorna Luft to develop a fragrance in celebration of their mother Judy Garland's 100th birthday. At the age of 79, Liza Minnelli is still alive, singing, and smart. Liza, a brand new documentary that tells an amazing, completely true story, debuted at Tribeca and will be available in 2025. It includes unreleased video and unguarded moments from her life. Her world was open to the director. He caught someone who was still fighting, still moving, and still full of fire.